Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Plays. I thought I'd just make another video to talk about what we talked about yesterday in regards to Microsoft and Xbox coming out with no launch titles. I feel like the video yesterday was quite informative in the respect of what was happening. But there is a little bit more information I think I need to go into. Yesterday I said that the console was having no launch titles, which is not technically true, but it still is at the same time, and I'll explain that as I go along. So again, today you'll be watching a little bit more Void Bastards. I hope you enjoyed this game. I believe it's only on PC at this point. I do hope it sees another release on other platforms, because it is quite a good game. But basically, what I said yesterday was the fact that no launch titles is no good, which is true. You definitely need a launch title. What I found out, having done a little bit more research and a little bit more digging, was the fact that Halo Infinite is actually coming out on launch day for the Xbox Series X, but it's also being cross-generationally released, which means it will come out on the Xbox One also. Now, a lot of people will probably sit there and go, "Oh, that's good. Like, I can actually pick it up like at launch and I can enjoy it, and I don't have to worry about a new console," which is actually a really good thing, because you can not have, well, you don't have to stress about the idea of having to buy a new console. But this is where I agree with what I said yesterday, and I feel like what I said yesterday sort of still rings quite heavily true. And the thing is the fact that because it's coming out on both consoles, both generations, I just feel like you're sort of shortchanging the chance for the Series X to sell well. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm not trying to say, oh, you'll never sell a console and all that sort of stuff. No. What I mean is that by not limiting it to one console, you then have people sort of sit there and go, well, why do I need to upgrade straight away? And to me, that sort of raises a good point. Like, why would I upgrade straight away if I don't need to? I sort of sit there and go, okay, well, I really want to play this game, but now I know I don't have to pay for it straight away. You see what I'm saying? Like, if I don't have to pay for it straight away, the Xbox One X is like quite easily what I understand to be the most powerful console on the market at the moment. Like, it's certainly more powerful than the PS4 Pro. So, like, you've already got a good system. I feel like, especially with when you start looking at things like durability and how well this console's going to perform, you are certainly looking at a decent system. So much so that I feel like a lot of people probably wouldn't want to upgrade straight away. I don't own an Xbox, but I certainly... Oh, jeez. I certainly would hold off at this point, because the Xbox One X is quite a good system. So then that sort of reduces my thought process as to purchasing the Series X straight away. I feel like because it's cross-generation, it is a really good consumer move, like to help people to say, hey, you don't have to make the jump straight away. You don't have to worry about it so much straight away. But at the same time too, like, a lot of things that concern me in regards to that is when you say it's backwards compatible, it's going to be launched on two titles, you need to specifically design it with the most ideal spec in mind, being the Xbox Series X, and then the most obsolete or the least spec heavy hardware in mind. Which, if we're talking about backwards compatibility, like, I would say it would have to be the original Xbox One, the VCR Xbox One, because there's probably still quite a lot of people, or even the Xbox One S, because those are still quite, like, they're not as up to date, not as powerful as the X. So now instead of talking about a small range from the Xbox One X to the Xbox Series X, we're talking about the original Xbox One to the Series X. So you've got the S and the Xbox One X in between. Now, due to PC architecture in the consoles, I don't feel like, I'm not a programmer, I don't really know, I don't feel like it would be that big of a deal, but in the back of my mind, I can't help but think that if you're going to make Halo Infinite like this really big, like, ambitious project with great AI and all that sort of stuff, like the lighting, graphics and all that sort of stuff are probably very easily scaled down if you have a look at like PC games being able to adjust your graphics to suit for your graphics card, and even now with some console games being able to to prioritize like frame rate or graphics and stuff like that. When you start looking at that, like the field for error now, or the field to cover, is a lot larger. So if you have this game that's really ambitious and it requires a lot to run because it's got really smart AI components and all that sort of stuff, like looking away from graphics, like you now have this like this quite, what I feel to be, oh man, I'm getting completely owned here. What I feel to be this big gap in the market, which I feel like could really work against Microsoft. And what they've also said is that, you know, for the next 2 years, that's what they're going to focus on. Like, they're going to focus on having both platforms be viable, so you don't have to make that leap for 1 to 2 years. That's really good in theory, and it's really good in terms of being a consumer. If I own an Xbox, I would sit there and go, wow, that's actually good. I can sit there, or I could sit on this console for another year or so and just use that and leave it at that. But the problem I see with that is that's 2 years where the Xbox One Series X air quote exclusive games are either, well, they're not technically exclusive because they're on PC as well. As I said yesterday, despite the fact that it's on a Microsoft product, it is a different platform because a PC player and an Xbox One player are different beasts. Like, they are, right? I know people will probably think I'm a PC elitist, but a PC player in my mind is, and I am far from a PC elitist, air quote. To give you an idea, my graphics card is a 970. I've still got DDR3 RAM, and my CPU I think is like a 5th or a 6th gen. Like, it's old, low to mid spec, right? But what we're looking at is like a PC player in terms of an elitist is someone who wants like the best experience. You know, it has to run at either 1440p 60 frames or higher, or 4K 60 frames or higher. There are some that will do 1080p and unlimited frames, but the bare minimum is 60 frames. And consoles at the moment now aren't doing 60 frames. The Xbox One X has a few select games that run at 4K 60. Okay, a select few. So imagine, like, let's say Halo Infinite running on the Series X and then running on the original Xbox. You know, I think the difference you're going to find is, ooh, those are nasty, is quite substantial. And I feel like that's going to play a negative part in the console. Like, for 2 years, this is going to happen. Now, yesterday I was also speaking about like the new Assassin's Creeds and all that sort of stuff being like on the platform. That's not a reason why you purchase a console, and that's really true still. I'm not going to change my perspective on that, but I will give you a different perspective, like as a bit of an overthought to sort of weigh it up, right? If you have a look at PS4, this like over its lifespan, like there's been some really good exclusives, like your God of War, Last of Us Part 2's on the way. You've got well, there's heaps. Spider-Man, Ratchet and Clank, that was a good one. Bloodborne, you know, the list goes on. Insert popular PS4 exclusive here, right? I'm gonna die again. But the idea behind this is that in between all of those exclusives, you had what I would call more your snack sort of games. So when you look at like playing Spider-Man. If I wanted to play Spider-Man and it wasn't out yet, what I could do is I could sit down and maybe go, okay, I'm going to play, oh man, I think I'm going to play some Assassin's Creed or Odyssey. I'm going to play some, I don't know, some, whatever. Insert third-party game here, right? I feel like those sort of games are I can't run past them. They're sort of more your snacks in between, like, your main courses. The main course being those first-party exclusives. So, when I first bought a PS4, there was Infamous Second Son. Not a great Infamous game, but still not bad. As opposed to Rise Son of Rome. You know, when I look at Rise Son of Rome, I sit there and I go, that's not a good game. And I own it on my PC. It's terrible. I've played it through once. It looks really nice, but that's about it. So, once I finished Infamous, I think Bloodborne had come out, you know, and I was playing, like, third party. I think I had Knack as well. I don't own these games anymore. But I think I had Knack as well. So I sat there and I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. So, I've got that. I've got Knack. Once I finish Infamous, I'll go onto Knack. I played a little bit of Knack, didn't like it. Bloodborne come out, traded Infamous and Knack in, got Bloodborne. You know, and then in between that, I was playing Battlefield 4. You know, so I was playing more the snack game, air quote. You know, the little bit of a in between meal snack to get myself through the time period between these exclusive games. And then, I don't know, like Ratchet and Clank or something came out. I don't know, I can't remember. But basically, I've jumped from third party to first party every single time. And I don't play my PS4 so much anymore. As I said yesterday, I'm more so of a PC gamer now. And I have been for years. But my main platform is PC. So, like, nowadays, the only time I'll buy a third-party game on PS4 is if I don't really want to run the risk of playing the game for more than 2 hours and not being able to return it. Whereas if I play it on PS4, I can return it after a week or so at my local store. So what I'm looking at is I'm basically only now playing the exclusives on PS4. You know, and the exclusive lineup are games I actually want to play. They're not games that I just sit there and go, oh, I'll play those based on the fact that they're exclusive. They are actually games that interest me, like, as a game player. So, the more I sort of sit there and I think about it, like, this is the more of the reason why I sit there and go, well, you know, Xbox really needs these things. And I feel like even having them cross-generation is not good in the same respect, because what's happening is you now have your exclusive games, air quote, on multiple platforms, so they're not going to be buying that new hardware. And when they're not buying that new hardware for somewhat of maybe perhaps 2 years, like, that is 2 years in which Sony is going to be selling. And I understand, like, they've got the Xbox Game Pass where the first party lineup games come out the same day as they do physically. But name, and I don't mean this rudely because I actually don't know, but name one Xbox exclusive that was good. I bought an Xbox for Halo 5 Guardians. Terrible. Like, I absolutely hated it because I bought it with a specific reason in mind, and that was to play it with my brother. And unfortunately I couldn't do that, so it became quite obsolete quite quick. I actually sold my Xbox over it. Gears 5 I hear is amazing. But unfortunately, again, if I want to play Gears 5, I'm just gonna buy it on my PC. So automatically, I've lost the reason to purchase games on certain systems, or on that particular system on the Xbox. So the more I sort of sit there and I go through that and I think about it, the more I sit there and I go, well, what's the point in owning this platform? You know, the whole point I'm trying to make is the fact that if you limit or if you expand too far, like, you're actually damaging your brand more so than helping it. And I understand the concept of being consumer friendly, because, like, everyone should try to be, or everyone should be consumer friendly, not just try. They should actually aim to be consumer friendly. But I think there has to be a limit. Like, I personally prefer the way that Sony is handling it. And the reason for that is simply the fact of it's been long enough on the on the PS4. Like, it has been long enough. We've had the system now for many years, and the hardware is slowly, or is already at a point where it's old. You know, it's old, and it's time to update it. It's time for a refresh, a new bit of hardware. You know, and that's what worries me about the Xbox, is the fact that we're gonna get the idea of cross generation games, but at what cost? You know, and I know people would say, oh, you know, the best games for a generation don't really come out to a couple of years and all that sort of stuff. Yes, I understand that, but the thing I'm concerned about is the fact that once that happens, people have to pony it up anyway, or pony up and go through and purchase the new system. If it's still at full price, like, it's again another little issue where people might turn around and go, oh, it's been this many years, it's still the same price. Why is it still the same price? And the other thing is the fact that at this point, in terms of a sales demographic on hardware, Sony's already had 2 years of working on exclusively the PS5. You know, and when you look at that in terms of sales numbers, I understand that they may take a loss on the system, because they want to try and make money through their games. But even still, like, you still want to sell the system. You know, it's the system that's going to keep things going. Because, and I understand when a game is when the console is launched, you're going to have, like, the fan players, like the real hardcore gamers, pick up the system. But I still don't think it's ideal to be doing this consistently. Some games being cross-generational is fine. But, like, I sort of just sat here and had to think about it as I'm speaking now. And I honestly can't think of another game which was from a first-party developer that had cross-generation. You know what I mean? Like, Crash Bandicoot 1, 2, and Warped are all PS1 games. Like, Spyro was PS1. Even though they went on to PS2, they weren't those original games. So, I don't know. It just sort of sits, like, to me, I sit there and sort of think about it and go, do you really want a game like Halo to be maybe possibly limited because of the old hardware? You know, that's what I'm looking at. Look, as I said, I'm not a developer. I'm not anything like that. I'm just a dude who, like, enjoys the game industry. Like, I enjoy what I see and all that sort of stuff, and I just worry sometimes because I feel like that is probably not the most ideal way to go about it. That's what I feel anyway. I just feel like it's not the best idea to go, or the best way to go about it. You just don't have that same, like, it's just, I don't know. It maybe that's just me, but I sit there and I'm sitting here now, even speaking to you, and I'm just sitting there going, don't sacrifice what Halo Infinite could be for the sake of reaching a broader market. You've had, is it 7 or 8 years to get this brand out there, and you know what I'm saying? Like, you've had all this time to get it done. It's time to move on. And Microsoft is certainly going down the way of, we want to make sure we don't upset people who just bought an Xbox One X. I get that. I do. But at the same time too, like, you got to remember, people who bought that, like, maybe want to play some older titles. You know, I'm not saying you can't do, like, cross-generation, that's fine, but I'd be very wary about it when you're starting to look at it in terms of a first party title like that. You know, I think a first party title should really start to think about being like exclusive on the new system. It's not been any different any other time, and I think Sony is really going to reap the reward from that. But you know, I'm just one guy sharing his opinions. I just feel like they owe it to themselves to rethink and maybe make sure that if they are dead certain about this cross-generation Halo Infinite game, that they make sure it's good across all platforms, because you don't want people to have to pony up the money to purchase the new system. This is just a shop, I'm not buying anything. To pony up the money just because it runs like garbage on the original system. You know, you gotta remember, people don't just have Xbox One X's Microsoft. People still have Xbox One S's, and I'm sure there's still some people that have Xbox Ones, the original ones from right back when you first launched the system. So please, 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 please keep that in mind. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video. I just wanted to give you a little bit more feedback on what I was thinking in regards to this. This video is unedited. Like you can see, I'm sort of speaking and doubling up on some things, but I want it to be more like a discussion. I don't really want it to be an edited thing where I sit there like a news story. It's more just my thoughts and processes on the whole thing as I'm sort of seeing it. And I felt after yesterday's video, I really needed to come back and say a little bit more about it, because I didn't want people to sit there and go, oh, hang on, he's just going on a tirade, like bad-mouthing Microsoft for a very consumer-friendly decision. It's not that I condone or I think that's a bad idea. I just feel like you have to keep in mind that this is a new console. You want to sell that new console, you know, and to hear that I can buy it on my current console if I'm an Xbox One X owner, sort of stops me from going, well, if it's like $550 it has to be at least $750 here, you know, in Australia. So like $750 for a console, or even like $650 for a console. I'll just hang on to what I have, because it still doesn't look that bad, you know. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like, a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel for more. Share it with your friends. And with that, I'll see you next time. I'm out.